hindsight, the Steam page did warn me. It literally said Souls-like combat, but I saw pirates, I saw ships, I saw base building, and apparently my brain just decided that those two words weren't important. Which probably explains why the first undiscovered location I stumbled across on the starting island absolutely destroyed me. And after getting my ass handed to me repeatedly, I realized something. Windrose and I had very different ideas about what a starter island is. Welcome back to the High Court of Games, where I, the Queen of Hearts, judge the games that enter these halls. Some are crowned victorious, others condemned to the graveyard. Today we hold the preliminary hearing of Windrose. Unlike a full trial, where judgment is delivered after extensive time has been spent with a game, a preliminary hearing examines the game's early evidence, first impressions, and its potential to one day stand among the victors. Because, let's face it, most of us don't have endless hours to play every game that catches our eye. The whole purpose of the series is to help you decide whether something deserves a place on your wish list or whether your time might be better spent somewhere else. The Steam page describes Windrose as embark on a PvE survival adventure in the age of piracy. Fight on land and sea, solo or with friends. Build, craft and explore vast open worlds filled with dark secrets, master Souls-like combat, and take on challenging bosses, command your ship and plunder unspoken treasures. Looking back, I probably should have paid more attention to that last sentence, because I have always been terrible at Souls-like games. Parrying and blocking have always been the bane of my existence, and I definitely tend to prefer ranged combat whenever I can. So naturally I completely glossed over the words Souls-like combat and focused on the pirates, the ships and the base building, which meant I got a very rude awakening. The first undiscovered location I stumbled across absolutely destroyed me. And what surprised me the most wasn't that I was struggling. I've never been particularly good at close combat. I'm definitely more of a button masher style of fighter. It was just how difficult it was. Most survival games have starting enemies that feel like tutorial enemies. They're designed to help you learn the controls and figure out what all the buttons do. Windrose doesn't really seem to have that. The difficulty feels much more spread out across the world, which means you can very easily find yourself running into enemies and ships that are far beyond what your gear and experience can handle. At one point I was sent towards Tortuga to begin interacting with the factions. However, you have to sail through waters occupied by much higher level ships while you're still using the most basic vessel imaginable. It always feels like the game expects you to use stealth before you've had the opportunity to properly learn everything. So after that first encounter, I very quickly turned the difficulty down to calm waters, because there is absolutely no shame in using accessibility features in games, and to me, difficulty settings are absolutely an accessibility feature. I know my limitations. I know I'm a button masher, and I'd much rather spend my time enjoying the game than getting frustrated, bouncing off it entirely, and potentially missing out on everything else the game has to offer, because Windrose is so much more than combat. Sailing in Windrose is an absolute joy. I love the sea shanties, and I genuinely look forward to hearing more of them being added over time, because that seems almost inevitable. The ones that we have right now are really good, but they're also surprisingly useful. You'll often spot enemy ships from a significant distance away, and while your crew is still singing, you know you're safely outside of cannon range. Then the singing stops, and that's how you know it's time to get ready for battle. I love that. It means I can focus on steering the ship and lining things up without worrying too much about timing my shots. The crew basically gives you an audio cue that things are about to get interesting. Naval combat itself is also a lot of fun. Boarding enemy ships definitely took some getting used to, especially because, as we've already established, close combat fighting and I have a very complicated relationship. But over time, I discovered my own little strategy. Instead of boarding the ships with my sailors, I stay on my own. I jump on top of my cannons, pull out my pistol or my blunderbuss, and simply start shooting the enemy sailors from afar. I'm fairly certain that's not how it was intended to be done, but it works, and it means I don't have to risk my life throwing myself into close combat every single time. Early on, bullets were precious because I hadn't unlocked gunpowder yet, so I couldn't really afford to waste ammunition, but once I reached the point where I could make my own gunpowder, naval combat became considerably less stressful and a lot more enjoyable. What I really appreciate is that the game allows me to approach encounters in a way that suits me. Because while I may not be the greatest swordsman, apparently I make a pretty good pirate. And speaking of things I enjoy, I've been having an absolute blast with the building. One of the first things that impressed me was the freedom. Building pieces don't have to snap together, and while they can if you want them to, you can also disable snapping completely and place things exactly where you want them, which opens up so many possibilities. And there are some really nice pieces in here. Curved stairs, stone archways, different themes and materials. The decorations are fantastic. But throughout my time with the game, I kept finding myself saying the same thing. Almost. Because there are so many building sets that feel like they're just one piece away from being perfect. You'll have curved stairs, but no matching floor pieces that let you transition cleanly back into straight floors, which means you either end up with gaps or you block access to the stairs entirely. Beautiful stone archways, but no matching stone pillars if you want to extend them downwards. Tile roof pieces look fantastic, but if your building has an odd number of walls, you eventually run into a problem. There's simply no clean way to finish the roof because there are no ridge end caps, and the existing triangular wall pieces don't fit the roof ridges either. 45-degree roof pieces exist, but only in leaf and straw, not in the tiled versions. And while triangular flooring pieces do exist, they're not right-angled triangles, which means creating straight lines isn't always possible. Only 2 stone foundation pieces have matching textures. Every other size uses a different texture, which makes combining different foundation sizes difficult. And that's really been the story of building in Windrose for me. Not frustration, not disappointment, just constantly looking at things and thinking, come on, you're so close. Because the foundations are fantastic. And if this is what the game looks like this early in development, I can't wait to see where it ends up. I don't find myself wishing the building was completely different. I just find myself wanting more. More pieces, more matching set, more decorations. And I suspect future me is going to spend far too many hours turning it into my own pirate wonderland. One thing Windrose does really well is respect my time. As you begin interacting with the various factions, you'll occasionally come across workers who can be hired and brought back to your island. Once assigned to a crafting station, they'll provide buffs to that table, and I really like that. They're not crafting things for you, they're not automating the game, they're simply making you better at what you're already doing. Merchants work a little differently. By purchasing contracts from the vendors on the faction islands, you can place merchants on your own island and hire them to gather resources for you. Defeating the boss in the different regions unlocked additional materials that they can collect, so they naturally become more useful as your adventure continues. They can only gather one resource at a time, and it takes a while, but you can purchase multiple contracts and have different merchants gathering different resources simultaneously. What I really appreciate is that these systems are completely optional. You don't have to use them. You could hire merchants purely because they make your island feel more alive and continue gathering everything yourself. And because they're relatively inexpensive, that's exactly what some people might choose to do. The game isn't forcing automation on you. You still need to gather your own ores, you still need to craft your own equipment, you still need to build. The game simply gives you the option to remove some of that repetitive gathering if you want to. And for me, that meant I spent less time chopping trees and gathering fibers and more time doing the things I actually enjoy. Sailing, building, and exploring the world on the hunt for the next blueprint I haven't unlocked yet. That's the kind of flexibility I really appreciate in a survival game. As the game expands, your responsibilities don't disappear, they evolve. Because personally, at the end of the day, I'd much rather spend my time chasing whatever adventure I feel like pursuing next than chopping down my 200th tree. Exploration is another area where I can see a huge amount of potential. The world itself is surprisingly easy to navigate. I absolutely love the compass, and having a proper mini-map makes such a difference. Sounds like such a small thing, but after playing games that refuse to give me one, I definitely learned to appreciate just how useful a mini-map can be. Traveling between islands feels good, discovering new locations feels rewarding, and I always found myself wondering what I'd stumble across next. But this also is probably the area where I'd love to see the game expand the most. Because while there are side quests, I don't feel like there's a huge amount of variety to them at the moment, and I would absolutely love to see more reasons to go exploring. Treasure maps, hidden puzzles, riddles, little secrets that reward curiosity, things that make me stop and think, hang on, what's over there? Because that's what exploration should do. It should make you curious. And that's why I think exploration in Windrose has so much potential. I don't want to explore because I need to refill my supplies. I want to explore because I saw something strange in the distance, or because I found half a treasure map, or because an NPC gave me a clue that sent me halfway across the world looking for buried treasure. I'd love to hear what you'd add. If you've played Windrose, what kind of adventures, quests, or discoveries would you like to see introduced in the future? Treasure hunts? Puzzle islands? Hidden islands that never appear on the map unless you stumble across them yourselves? Islands that only reveal themselves under certain conditions? Something completely different? Let me know in the comments below. Because personally, I think this world deserves even more reasons to get lost in it. Which brings us to today's judgment. Windrose isn't perfect. There are gaps in the building sets. I still think the intended difficulty could scare away players who would otherwise absolutely love this game, and I would love to see more variety added to exploration and side content over time. But this is an early access game, and because of that, I don't judge it based on what it could become, I judge it based on what it already is. And what it already is a game that has kept pulling me back time and time again. I want to unlock every blueprint. I want to recruit every worker. I want to defeat every boss, discover every island. I want to see what secrets are still waiting for me. I still feel like I've barely scratched the surface. At no point did I find myself thinking, I'm done. Instead, I kept asking myself, what's next? And that's a very difficult feeling to create, especially in a world where there are so many games competing for our time. So before the court today, Windrose receives a verdict of crowned. Because despite its flaws, despite its gaps, and despite the occasional reminder that I have the combat skills of an angry potato, I still can't wait to set sail again. If you'd like to check out Windrose for yourself, you'll find a link to the Steam page in the description below. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to like the video. It lets me know you'd like to see more games standard for the High Court. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider subscribing and ringing the notification bell. I'm currently on a quest to reach my first 1,000 subscribers here on YouTube, and every new adventurer who joins the court helps bring that goal a little closer. Thank you so much for your support. Court dismissed.